So I was wrong. And Alex Poatan has just beaten Ankalaev in the first round to become the new UFC Light Heavyweight champion. Now, honestly, in this fight, there's not even a great deal to talk about. Pereira came in, he closed the distance early, applied pressure, landed a big shot. Ankalaev completely folded once he felt that power, started diving for the legs, and just doing naked shots like that against Pereira. He's far too good of a striker to be falling for that. Pereira stuffs the takedown, gets on top of Ankalaev and just starts beating him up, basically. Elbows, punches, elbows to the body, elbows to the head, and he's not defending himself. He's not working for position. Ankalaev's not defending himself, not working for position, not trying to even throw anything back. I know you're on bottom, you can't really throw anything back, but start reaching for hands, try and hold him up, try and tangle him up, try and get back on your feet. Ankalaev wasn't doing that at all, and Herb Dean, rightfully so, just ended the fight. Now, this fight, like I said, there really isn't, that's really the fight. The fight was like about a minute long. There really isn't a lot to break down on this fight. But I was really surprised to see Ankalaev fold like that, if I'm being honest. Right? He'd been hit clean by Pereira before in the first fight, and he was able to take it. He didn't fold like this, but shooting in naked against a striker as good as Pereira, even at this point, like, you're just asking for it. And he got it. He was asking for it, and he got it, right? Pereira showed that he's still dangerous. He showed that he's still not gun shy, which is a thing which would be a real concern after a loss like that, right? And it wasn't a particularly bad loss against Ankalaev, but you don't know the mental toll a loss like that takes on a fighter. We know now that sort of that fight is not taking any mental toll on Pereira at all, and he was able to come back even better, and he came out aggressive, and he was keen to not let this fight go the distance like the first fight did. And I think he's understanding that was a mistake. Of course, there were rumours and talks that he was, unwell in that first fight and potentially had an injury. But you could tell this fight, he looked a lot better. He looked a lot more switched on, looked a lot more ready to go. Do you know what I mean? Whereas in the first fight, it is hard because you don't want to know, you don't want to say, oh, he looked off, and then you're taken away from Ankalaev's performance. But he definitely did feel a bit more complacent in that first fight. And maybe that's because you're the champion, you're going into it, you're making a title defence. You've defended your title multiple times at this point, and you're thinking, well, it's just another run-of-the-mill guy. Maybe underestimated Ankalaev a bit, but he didn't make that mistake this time, And kudos to Pereira, because again, at 38, to make the adjustments he made, like, this game plan was quite different to the first fight. Like I said, where the first fight seemed a bit more complacent, this fight, he went out there and he was getting his title back, right? So a fair play to Pereira, and I got it wrong. And I hold my hands up, I thought at this point in Pereira's career, he's an old guy, a lot of miles on the clock, a lot of experience, but you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But he showed that, you can adjust game plans and you can make the right reads and adjustments and get the victory when you need to. And that's what he's done. I thought, and when will I learn my lesson? Ultimately, when will I learn my lesson that rematches are very rarely the same as the first fight? Very rarely. It doesn't happen often, Most of the time the fights are different. Occasionally, rematches are basically just a continuation from the first fight, but often they're very different from the first fight. So, yeah, I learned my lesson. I was wrong about Pereira, and I don't know who's going to be fighting next. Maybe it's Olberg or Yuri, but I'll make a separate video about that down the line. I don't think they'll be doing Yuri. I think Yuri, leave the poor guy alone, man. Yuri's been stopped twice by him. Like, it gets to a point where you sort of start to feel sorry for Yuri at that point, but. Yeah, I'd be curious to know what you guys think of this fight. What you think, who's next for Pereira? I think ultimately there isn't a great deal to even talk about this fight because it was just a first round knockout, first round TKO in like a minute and a half. But the UFC seemed very happy that this was the result, and rightfully so, because I think everyone would rather Pereira be champion than Ankalaev. The UFC, the fans, Pereira obviously would prefer to be champion. But yeah, well, what was an interesting. It wasn't really an interesting fight, to be honest. I was going to say it was an interesting fight. Not really. Pereira went out there, banged him, dropped him. Didn't drop him, but put him on his back and then finished him off with TKO. That's what Pereira does. Who's next for the light heavyweight division? Be curious to know what you guys think in the comments below. And yeah, another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.